Hey everybody, welcome back to therealtorshow.com. Again, it's therealtorshow.com. I am Dan Sfera. I am joined by regular guest Dan Peart. He's
All
the
right.
team leader at Keller Williams Irvine. Okay, and I'm also an agent there, but Dan is the team leader. So we have these videos where we kind of go through different issues pertaining to real estate agents. You don't have to be a realtor with Keller Williams. You can be with another broker. We hope you join us. And we also hope you guys reach out with questions, okay? Because the goal of this video series is to empower other realtors out there. So I think it was 2 weeks ago, we went through this book here, which is like the Bible for realtors, right? Or at least it should be. We
Right.
don't want to get religious here, but it's a really important book, and I'm amazed how many agents have not read this book. All right, so we went through the six myth understandings, and today we're going to go through the 9 ways the millionaire real estate agent thinks. All right, Dan?
Okay. Sounds good.
And anything, would you like to add anything to this as like a preface?
Um, yeah. Well, I guess not really. I just, this is one of my favorite sections of this book because it's just universal. And like you said before, it doesn't have anything to do with Keller Williams. This book was not even basically a Keller Williams book. And some of the agents that were interviewed in here, giving this feedback, it's very true today, even as much as it was in 2004 when the book came out. So we're starting to see that with shifting markets and so on. So that's all I'd add to that.
Good, good. Yeah, it's absolutely required reading. Okay, so number one from the 9 ways the millionaire real estate agent thinks, because this is all about improving what's up here with us, okay? Number one, think powered by a big why. So, what does this mean, Dan?
It's a way of thinking that doesn't limit people really. It's important for everybody to have a big why, a big reason, a big purpose, a big I mean, passion will come and go throughout your career. So you have to have something that anchors you to that vision because there are times when this business is not easy. And it's probably easier to say, look, I can't go forward with that goal because, I'm blocked by something. So whatever it is that you're after as far as a goal, it has to be a lot bigger than just the paycheck itself.
Uh-huh. Are agents, from your experiences, because you've been in this industry, I mean, I don't even know how many years, but you've
14.
come across so many different realtors in your 14 years. Uh, is this something that they're missing? A big why?
I think so. And I believe the reason is because it's paralysis by analysis. To think big, it requires victories, it requires wins sometimes. And sometimes you'll have a thought in your head or a goal in your head and you want to laugh at it because it seems so far out there and so far fetched, yet over time with a good model of business and a good goal and something bigger to reach for, and it could be a legacy goal or it could be something as simple as wanting to provide just a better life for your family now. A big why, that anchor, that thing that pulls you through the tough times, is very, very important.
Okay, yeah, and this is number one and number two are the foundational structure of the ways that the millionaire real estate agent thinks. So number two is think big goals and big models. So what's that all about?
A lot of times when people are putting their structure together of what they want, a model is basically what a proven system, right? It's something that's been proven over time. It's been tested. So if you're going to have big goals, you're going to have big models to support those big goals, meaning that you're going to have proven systems to get you there. And then on top of that, build in creativity. So big models is the foundation of a real estate agent's business. It's often overlooked. Many real estate agents overlook this part because the creativity part is so much more fun.
Right.
Um, so building a foundational model that's proven to help you get where you want to go, and having big goals with a big model, it's a certainty that you'll get there.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's kind of like the difference between having a good idea, the people who have a good idea, and then the people who actually execute on the good idea. I mean, we all have good ideas. Every day I come up with like hundreds of good ideas, but I don't execute on maybe more than a couple a year. So this is kind of
Well,
related to that.
you were in an industry, and didn't mean to cut you off, but we're in an industry where there are ideas around every corner, and we call it the squirrel, right? And the squirrel runs by several times a day, and people chase it, and it's a natural tendency of a real estate agent to actually want to go find the quickest solution to a lead generation problem. Um, However, it's really consistency, repetitious boredom, like we've talked about before, laying systems and structures that can be duplicated by others, leveraging appropriately. I mean, all of those things are going to help you accomplish your goals.
And that's one
And
of
so
the
that's
things
big.
I think as a new realtor or a relatively new realtor, the systems and the models is one of the things that Keller Williams actually excels at when it comes to training their agents. So yeah, definitely very important. Number three, think possibilities. So can you expand on that?
It's very easy to think about, just in human nature, it's very easy to say that won't work. Or like we talked about last week in the miss, that won't work in my market. Or, you know, it's that system won't work here or whatever it is. Thinking in possibilities expands your brain. So you're thinking of how can it work? It's about asking a better question as you go through the course of your day and the course of your business. So instead of, like, hey, I want to do 100 transactions this year. Well, instead of laughing at it and saying, oh, well, that's impossible, thinking possibilities is about, well, wait a minute. If I ask myself a better question, my brain's going to give me a better answer for it. So how could I, and how would I, and what would need to happen, and when would it need to happen by? This is thinking in possibilities, thinking
Uh-huh.
how these can happen, and more importantly, who can help me, and um, it just gets your brain thinking in a different way.
Yeah, because in reality, there are agents out there. They're the mega agents, the super duper mega agents, but they do 100 transactions every year, right?
Right? And sometimes they're stuck there and they want to do 200 or 300 or more. So someone out there has created a model to do that. And I think what's important is, instead of just brushing it off and saying it can't happen, or, I just don't have what it takes to get there, is, when you think in possibilities, it really does turn on the brain.
Yeah, find a way to
It's
try to make it happen rather than just coming up with excuses of why you can't.
exactly,
Mhm.
exactly.
Number
Thinking
four,
possibilities.
think action. So I guess this is where many realtors miss the mark, right?
Yeah. Well, this can be the part where when you go back and you think about models, action is the only thing that's left. Once you have the model and the structure, and you know what you're doing day in and day out, and this can be a business of predictability and income. And so when you're thinking about these things, it's just the right course. You have to take action. Without action, nothing happens, right? You can have the best model set up, you can have the best foundation. Without the action that you need to take, namely lead generation, you're not going to have the results that you want to have.
Yeah, Chris and I were talking about how early on in his career, 100% of his time was dedicated to just lead generating, uh, as opposed to just running around and doing different things to appear to be busy. He's just lead generating because that's what's bringing the income at the end of the day.
Right.
Number five, think without fear. So that's a tough one sometimes.
Yeah. Well, I think a lot of people. Well, I know a lot of people have fear. I have fears. Um, that creep into my head daily. We call them the drunk monkey, right? The people the fears that come around you, and then you tend to attract the people that will support those fears. And really, what are we afraid of? I guess when you look at it at the end of the day, we're not brain surgeons. We're not, you know, no one's life has been in jeopardy because of something that we did and failed. So it's more about failing forward,
Hmm.
and this company really advocates that. The more, as long as you're learning from your mistakes, you're going to win. Chris always says, you make you do it the first time, it's a mistake. The second time, it's a choice, right? So it's about learning and building on those mistakes and moving forward, and that'll help eliminate fear over time of taking those risks. Track record of success is the best way to eliminate fear.
Hmm. Yeah, I've met a lot of realtors and not just realtors, but entrepreneurs in general. Early on in their careers, they were actually afraid of being successful. And we get into some psychological stuff there, but it's a real fear. So this book and these systems can actually help you alleviate those type of fears.
Oh, absolutely. And having a support structure that helps you think through it. See, as leaders every single day, my number one job is to help people learn how to think, right? It's something that we've become very complacent at. And so when I'm helping people think and helping them think through what their ultimate fear is, we can take it all the way to the worst possible scenario that can happen if they push forward. And if they can live with that, if that happens, then what else do you have to be afraid of?
Hmm.
You can live with that worst possible situation and still survive and still wake up tomorrow morning. What do you have to be afraid of?
That's
And
right.
so getting people to think through their situations and think how it can happen, having that culture around you to support you is big.
Oh, yeah. Number six, think progress. So these are all part of the supportive part of the nine ways the millionaire real estate agent thinks. So think progress. What should be progressing?
You should get addicted to process
Hmm.
is basically what it boils down to. Fall in love with process and not always the results. So, for instance, if you're tracking something, anything, your lead generation activities, you want to make sure that you're measuring. So, you have to measure the numbers. The numbers never lie. They're always going to tell you a story, they're always going to take you somewhere. And so, it's about really being honest with yourself about the numbers, tracking what's working, tracking what's not working. And I know some people say, well, I do it on a weekly basis. Track it daily. Track your results daily, track your activities daily. It can get boring, it can get kind of mundane, but at the end of the day, you're going to have a clear perspective of what it is that you've created
Hmm.
going forward. They say that success is gradually, then suddenly, right? You're
Right.
working, and then everybody looks at you like, oh, you're an overnight success.
Right.
And so those are the things that that's really what progress is. You want to measure the progress and not just get addicted to the end of the goal, because even then there's more progress that can be made.
Yeah, and it's always funny how the successful businesses and the consistent businesses have the most boring processes, like
Yeah.
McDonald's, for example, right? I don't know if anyone out there watching has ever looked at one of those franchisee manuals, but they are really boring, but proven to be completely effective.
That's why 16-year-olds can run a McDonald's.
Yeah,
It's machines turn themselves off. It's systems, and they're proven and they work. And so it's
so what
you
are
know
like, can you give us like two things that we can start tracking daily in our activities as realtors?
yeah, I think that to create progress, the first thing that's necessary is lead generation, right? You tracking your lead generation numbers, so you control the things that you can control, and that is your outbound lead generation. So if I was in their same shoes, I'd be calling expireds every single day, and I would track it, and I would maybe start at 2 hours and then stretch that muscle to 3 hours. And you're just measuring every single day. First of all, did I stick with the activity that produces the results? Only thing that you can control. You can't really control, the appointments all the time. You might not get any appointments one day, and then the next day you have four. You could track the things you're doing to enhance your skills, the role play, the scripts practice. Make sure that you're slowly growing into mastery, or even quickly growing into mastery of your scripts and dialogues. Those are just a couple examples of things that you can track, measure, and improve
Hmm.
upon.
And those are all things we can help you with at Keller Williams. So thank you, Dan. Number seven, think competitively and strategically. So it makes sense, but what does that actually mean?
When you're thinking competitively, you're thinking, first of all, it's a measure of your self improvement. You should always be competing with yourself to say, look, what could I have done differently about today? What could I improve upon tomorrow instead of letting weeks go by? If you think about it, life is very, very short. So if you're going to measure anything, you want to first compete with yourself. Strategically, that's a must. I mean, any way that you can think strategically and save yourself time, we call it time on planet, where you're actually just living through these experiences, but you're pulling from someone else's experiences. You're thinking strategically and how to maximize a dollar return on any kind of lead generation method. You're thinking strategically on how to convert a particular client that is just waiting for you to ask the right question. Um, these are all important things as far as, I don't want to say everything's important, but when it comes to your lead generation, and especially follow up, that's another
Hmm.
thing.
It's a big
Think
one.
strategically on what's it going to take to move that person forward another notch so that you're not working with someone for a year or 2 years.
And I find it very interesting, and I don't know if this was intentionally, that when you talked about think competitively, you're not talking about competing with any other agents, right? It's just internal.
Right. And you're always going to compete with other agents, but the only way you compete with others is to get better yourself. So by challenging yourself more and more and more every single day, what if I could do more? It goes back to the progress. It's like, did I really do the best that could be done, or did I just do my best today?
Right, right.
The difference in the question is outstanding, and I'm hoping that I do the best that can be done on a daily basis, but it's not always the case, and it's not often the case.
And it's very consistent with what I've seen and what I've experienced, not just as a realtor, but as an entrepreneur, a business person in different industries. Uh, People generally tend to focus outward. They worry too much about their competitors and their competition rather than working on themselves. So I think this is a really good message here. And I'm glad to see that it actually applies to the real estate industry, which many people would consider is pretty competitive.
It is. It is competitive, but it's not crowded at the top for sure.
Hmm,
That's why there's fewer top producers than there are that produce less.
that's right.
And so, strive to get to the top where it's less crowded, and then the
It's lonely
competition.
at the top.
Lonely. Say it's lonely at the top.
That's
Yeah,
right.
bottom
Good.
of the run that's crowded. Yeah.
Number eight out of nine. Okay, number eight. This is number eight out of the nine ways the millionaire real estate agent thinks is think standards. So, what's that all about?
Um, and this was a big one for me. So, when you're thinking standards, why wouldn't you have the highest standards around? If you want a high production focused business, then it starts with having high standards for yourself. Um, if I'm lead generating, if I'm lead generating, how can I raise the bar on the standards? If my coach gives me a standard and says, Dan, I want you to contact 15 people today. I have my own personal standard that says, hey, I could contact 20 or 25 people a day. I could follow up with 4 or 5 people a day as opposed to just following up with 2 people a day. Whatever it is, if you're going to have a standard in this business, why wouldn't you have the highest possible standard? The trick is it's got to start with you. You have to have a high standard for yourself. And what you'll find is people will rise to meet those standards as opposed to the leadership having to come down to someone else's standard.
Hmm.
You should have it in clients and everything.
Yeah, my question is because if you would tell this to just an average realtor, they would say, "Yeah, of course, I have the highest standards for myself," but their actions don't are not consistent with that. So, what's the reason for that?
I think everybody's got a different, it's like cleanliness, right? When you look at it, everybody's got a different standard of what clean is, right? Some people, it's the white glove treatment. I'm going to go into your house and I'm going to, rub the top, and if any dust comes off on my fingers, you're dirty, right? Other people, I mean, they don't clean behind their TV or whatever it is. You know what I mean? And it's
Right.
just like this deal. It's the same thing. People have different standards on standards. They have different values on standards. Some people will think, hey, I have a very high standard. And often it's not until they run into somebody else that has one that's even higher that they find out, wow, this is possible to think like that or to have a standard like that, and people will rise to meet it. And it's often the difference between whether it's a Keller Williams Market Center that's doing extremely well or an agent that's doing extremely well. you'll often find right behind that's a high set of standards for their team, for them. It's got to start with themselves, then it goes to their team,
Hmm.
and it's important. And anybody can raise the bar of their standard. They just have to be around people that challenge them to raise it.
Yeah, I think that's the key. Last one. Okay, so we're on number nine of the nine ways the millionaire real estate agent thinks. Think service. So can you explain that to us, Dan?
Yeah, you've got to put your customers first, in everything. Services, it's overrated. You know, a lot of the slogans you'll see well, it's actually, underrated a little bit. Um, you'll see things like I have the most integrity, or real estate agents use the funniest marketing words, integrity and service. And, but you have to look at the fact that services is more than just what you're doing during a transaction. It's before the transaction. It's during the transaction. It's after the transaction, after you've already been paid, and your client is reaching out to you for a number for a landscaper or something like that. That's when the most important service standard times are to be um, to be dealt with. And so that's where we most often drop the ball, because we're on to the next, on to the next, on to the
Mm,
next, or we have to constantly prospect for new business because we haven't stayed in contact with that client that absolutely loved our service. And so it's about having a higher level of customer satisfaction and service. We want to make sure that we're taking care of them. That's Without that customer, we don't have a business. And so
yeah.
in this is the best form of business.
Hmm. Yeah, and that's, that wraps up the nine ways their millionaire real estate agent thinks. What I noticed about these things is they're meant to start with the agent thinking this way, but each one of these things is scalable. So it can apply to your team, like think service, think standards.
Yeah.
If you master it and then you build a team, you can translate your standards, your service to your team members. That means leverage for you. And at least from my experiences so far with Keller Williams, about a year and a half now, they're really big on leverage and on teaching you these systems. So that's one thing I really like about Keller Williams. But thank you, Dan. Thank you for that. And next week we'll go through some more of this book. Everyone needs to get it. I haven't done the Instagram contest yet. I was gonna do an Instagram giveaway contest, right? So if you
Yeah.
want to get one of these books, you've got to be a real estate agent, right?
Right. Be a real estate, at least, yeah, yeah, a licensed real estate professional. And I, you know, would love to set up a meeting or consultation with you, share a little bit about why it's relevant,
Hmm.
and of course, get a copy of the book. So,
Get a copy of the book. You have to be in Southern California, preferably Orange County, but it could be anywhere in SoCal. Call me or Dan. My number is 949-415-6256, and Dan, yours is.
858-349-6573.
All right. Thank you guys for watching, and thank you, Dan, for doing this, and I'll talk to you next week.
My pleasure. Have a good one.
Bye bye.